Sorry. Okay.
Who's going to lead the
Okay, so I'll just go ahead and lead us to make it simple. So everyone, I guess you gotta show what you're wearing. Stand. Say the word of allegiance. I'll lead. Okay, so I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States
of
of
America
and
and
to the republic
for which
it
we
stands,
stand, one
one
nation, under God,
the God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty and
with
justice
liberty
for all.
and
justice
for all.
Woo. There we go. Patriotism. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda with one change? We're just going to move item 6B above 6A.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Moving to public comment, I think it was stated earlier that we didn't have any items for public comment. Has that changed?
Nope, we have no items for public comment.
Awesome. All right. So moving on to 6B, the revised at-home learning plans, turning it over to Dr. Deloria.
Thank you. If everyone could mute their mics. And Jake is going to share the presentation. So tonight, the executive cabinet and I are going to share with you our JUHSD emergency operations plan. I know it seems hard to believe, but back around March 13th, even before that, March 3rd, we were already meeting as an EOC. And I'll talk a little bit about that tonight. But as you know, this plan continues to evolve. And besides sharing information with you tonight, we're hoping to get feedback from everybody who's online tonight, because we need to move on to phase 3. Jake, okay, I think I see how we do this. All right, so in tonight's presentation, I'm going to start with a small update. Then Ms. Baca will talk about her response plan in educational services. Ms. Van Raphorst will be talking about business and operations. Tony will do human resources, and then I'll wrap it up with some final remarks. So before we get started, I'd like to ask Ms. Ambrose to lead all of us through a little mindfulness.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
I'm really honored to be here and do a little mindfulness with you all. So I'm just going to do a soothing practice, because some of us, our nerves are a little fried right now. So if you've never done it, don't worry about it. Go ahead and just get yourself settled, and I'll ring a bell. And then a bell will ring after 2 or 3 minutes, and I'll do a little talking. So we'll just begin by taking a few intentionally really deep breaths, and it might be nice to just breathe your shoulders all the way up to your ears, and then let them fall with the exhalation, and fill your lungs all the way on the inhalation. And release everything on the exhalation. And then just right now, we'll do a very simple practice called belly breathing. And if you put your hand on your belly, the beautiful thing about doing mindfulness from home on Zoom is no one can see your belly, so we don't have to be shy. We can really let our bellies be soft. And then just intentionally breathe deeply into the bottom of your lungs so that your hand rises on the inhalation and descends on the exhalation. And we'll just do deep belly breathing for the rest of the time until the bell rings. And this kind of breathing is known to trigger our parasympathetic nervous system, which is the nervous system that deals with resting, digesting, feeling safe, and feeling relaxed. So just breathing in deeply and exhaling fully. And if you catch yourself thinking, it's no problem. Just gently go back to the breath when you remember. And if you like, you can even imagine your stress and your worry, your anxiety, your discomfort about all the unknown, just releasing on the exhalation. Breathing in calmness on the inhalation and release on the exhalation. You. Just real quick, and then I'll mute myself. If people feel really stressed, doing 10 minutes of that is been researched. Neurosciences research shows that that does really start your parasympathetic nervous system, and it takes over the sympathetic, which is fight, flight, freeze, or faint. So 10 minutes is really helpful. Thanks.
Thanks, Melissa. And a big thank you to Melissa, because she's really been our wellness guru through this emergency, not only with staff, but with students as well. So thank you so much, Melissa. And so in tonight's presentation, just a few tips. If you can remember to mute your mics when you're not speaking, there are going to be plenty of opportunities for you to ask clarifying questions or give feedback. But when you're not talking, if you can mute your mic. So Corrine, Tina, and Tony will provide an overview of their division's operations. When they're talking through their presentation, go ahead and ask any clarifying questions during the section. And then there's a little icon when their section's complete, where we can go ahead and collect feedback, not only from the board members, but also from our student trustees. So each section, ask clarifying questions during that section, and at the end we can actually have a conversation or start collecting feedback from everybody. So our contacts, so here's our contacts: our students and our families and our staff. Everyone has encountered great loss. I cannot remember an emergency this big since probably 9/11. And here we are. So we had some priorities as we were going into this, and the priorities, we added some priorities as we discovered that the emergency wasn't going to be over in a week. But in the very beginning, our first concern was to ensure that our staff, our students, and our families were safe. And so everyone received plenty of communication that talked about the different ways, whether it was with the hand washing protocols, whether it was the visitor protocol, but we really made an effort in the first 5 or 6 days about the safety. Then once we started to realize that we were going to have to kind of change the way we work, and we knew we were planning for remote working, we really needed to be thinking through, how do we provide empathy? How do we provide a routine? How are we going to be flexible? What information are we going to share? And how are you going to create some sort of feeling of normalcy during a time that's anything but normal for our students, families, and staff? Then we started to get emails and calls, and people were concerned. There were already students early on and families who were having a hard time getting essential services, whether that was food, whether it was getting medication, mental health, all those things. So that was our third priority. Our fourth priority is really related to our at-home learning. We wanted to make sure that when we went to digital or distance learning. You've heard it called a number of things. We're new at this. Here we were going to at-home learning. We didn't train anybody beforehand. It was training on the go. We knew we had staff and students who didn't have technology at home. We knew that we had some students who would be taking care of siblings and helping their siblings do work. Some siblings actually had to work because parents were furloughed. So we really had to design a plan that could only help students, not harm them. And then finally, our fifth priority, and there may be others, but our fifth priority is thinking proactively now, especially now that announcements have been made that it's unlikely we'll return to school before the end of the year. We need to be thinking about our seniors related to graduation and post-secondary access. So these are the things that we think about when we brainstorm solutions and make changes in any of our operation plans. And then I had to tell you the bulk of the work has been done by Corrine, Tony, and Tina. I've just been kind of the communication glue, making sure that everybody's in the loop. And it's, I feel like we've been doing this for months, but I've only been communicating about this emergency since March 3rd, and today's April 1st. So something to keep in mind is we haven't even been in this response for a month, and yet it keeps changing. So for the first couple handful of communications to staff and families, we're really focused on facts and dispelling rumors. Remember some of the early rumors that were floating around, and then reducing anxiety the extent that I could. Once the county order came out and we knew that we were going to have to dismiss our students from schools, which is how Dr. Morrow is referring to it. It's a dismissal from school order. We needed to focus on our at-home learning plan. And so a lot of the communications from the 13th to the 27th were all about phases 1 and 2 of AHL. But one of the things I was noticing as I was going through all of my communications is you can look back and look at the ones up to the 12th, and they're very technical and business-like. But you see a noticeable change in tone to my communication starting on the 13th, where I'm really starting to infuse some empathy, and that's taken some practice. And then starting yesterday, now we have to be thinking about, our communications have been about school operations and AHL through the end of the school year. And I think it's been important. We have a lot of people who support us in making sure the correct information that goes out. So if you look at the bottom of the list, whenever there's a communication that goes to staff or one that goes to students and families, the board always sees it first. Then we send it out to the administrators. We send it out to Monica. I send copies out to my county soups and to Nancy McGee. We keep the police chiefs informed. We have our city council members from Daly City and Pacifica on the list, PTA leadership, and then there are also some other district-friendly people in the community who are really good at getting information out and helping people understand what the facts are. So this has been our communication system, and it really has, I think April Hawkins has done an excellent job of keeping everybody connected through these communications. So I'm going to stop there and see if there's any feedback or comments just on what I've talked about so far, whether it was on the priorities or on the communications. Students, that includes you too. You can just talk. We're not going to raise hands.
I think it'd be really helpful if there was a more direct focus on student mental health that, like, I know for everybody that I've talked to that it's really hard to be at home, like away from people. So I feel like having like more of a direct outreach to the students regarding mental health would be really helpful, because I know like with some people, they don't feel comfortable reaching out on their own. So I think it would be really helpful for like the counselors to, so like, I don't even really know what that would entail, but I just know that mental health has not been great lately.
Yeah, I see Melissa nodding her head. she's listening to that. Thank you for that feedback, Tiana. If there's no other feedback, then we can transfer control over to Ms. Baca.
So today I'm going to be talking mostly about the at-home learning part of this. And let me click on this. And as what Dr. Deloria had mentioned earlier, there are 3 phases. We thought it was just going to be just 1 phase, but it ended up that we're going to end up having 3 phases. So the yellow ones are phase 1, the green is phase 2, and the blue one is phase 3. So the Ed Services team basically found out about the planned shelter in place on March 12th at 1 p.m. We were asked by Dr. Deloria to create a plan for at-home learning. And so that was a Thursday, and that's from 1 to 3. I would just, before I continue, I really want to thank my team right now: Lori Robinson, Doreen Baswino, Christy Plochet, Jake Meyer, Kristen Ashford, Denise Shreve, Lee Medvedoff, and Grace Fursey, who were basically locked in a room for a day and a half and trying to figure out what we're going to do because this is so new for everyone. So that was, between March 12th, and then our plan was on March 16 is that we had to communicate this information to all the staff. But as we were talking, we were trying to figure out what would be the best way to communicate this and do some kind of rollout. So we came up with the idea that in the morning, we will have our administrators in the Galleria practicing social distancing. And then around late morning, we were going to ask each of the school sites and it's their instructional leadership team, which consists of their administrators, the instructional coaches, the department heads, and any other people that is part of the leadership team. So on March 16th at the Galleria, we rolled out our plan. We started just with the administrators, and when we broke out actually in different rooms in the Galleria, and this was the first time where we had practiced video conferencing through Google Meet. So it was, their first chance to talk to 5 different groups of people while we have 1 person presenting. During the middle of the day, that's when the shelter in place order was given to us. And again, we didn't know what we were doing, whether education was part of being an essential service, and it was. And so our plan was to continue with the at-home learning, but instead of having 2 days on site for staff members to plan, we said on March 17th, staff needs to be at their school site to plan with their collaborative team, do remote planning on March 18th, and then on March 19th, it's the implementation of at-home learning for the next 2 weeks. Right after that, on March 24th, I knew that we were going to the second phase of at-home learning. So we revised our plan. And on March 27, Lori Robinson had set up a webinar, and we had about 125 participants to learn about the at-home learning that will happen after spring break. So I'm going to go more into details about that in a little bit. And again, the new AHL plan is scheduled to start after spring break. Now, phase 3, as we know, we heard yesterday that we will not be returning to school. So phase 3 is we really need to look at grading and the types of student supports that we can provide. So like what Tiana is saying, additional mental health support. So those are the kinds of things that we will be planning as we move along with this. So phase 1, again, is our goal is just for the students to review content materials. We didn't want them to learn any new materials. We wanted to give them a chance to review for their finals. AP exams, SAT were not suspended yet. And we want to use this period in order for some of the students who needed to catch up with their grades to be able to catch up. So our goal is, again, is to not hurt any student's grade. and it can only help them to improve their grade. And the task for teachers is to collaborate with each other to create that work, a 2-week worth of packet or work that was posted online. And again, it was subject alike, not by teachers. We didn't expect daily lessons, and we had created a uniform template for that. And Google Classroom was the expected use for communication and clarification for all of the students. Again, part of this work, again, all of the links were available on the district website. We made some hard copies of packets available. Again, no consequences for grades whatsoever. Students at this time could submit their work through Classroom, or we thought that, you know, when they return, they can return that, but obviously that is not the case anymore. Phase 2, what was communicated is that course teams again. So this is about learning new content now. So course team together, so for instance, Math Course 1 teachers will determine the essential skills that are necessary to move on to the next level of the course. Again, it's just very, very basic, and we don't expect them to go over every single detailed in their scope and sequence. Again, they do not have to teach the same content, so they don't have to use the same book if they don't want to, but the skills is very important for them to be able to be aligned. Part of this, they also have some kind of formative assessment and a summative assessment. An example of that is, so for instance, a formative assessment could just be a draft of an essay. And then a final assessment would be that final draft of the essay. Again, we wanted this to be less stressful for the students and the teachers too. And teachers can plan, again, weekly activities, and that's actually what we had suggested. And we would like the students to only take up a maximum of 2 hours of work to complete each week per class. And again, we shared different options for online models that was shared during the webinar. And more importantly, we started talking about the grading system of having an A, B, C, or a pass guideline, because again, we understand the circumstances where families are right now, and also our teachers and staff, and we don't want to hurt students' GPA, and we do not want to see students fail at this time. Concerns were brought up about some students that perhaps entered really late within the year, or some students only completed 10% of their work, but they need to move up to the next level. So we are exploring a grade of no mark that will be determined later on. So phase 2, baseline expectations. Again, we asked the teachers to communicate, to post assignments on Google Classroom every week. They need to check their emails 1 to 2 times a day. And then what we had written to are some of the key tools that teachers and staff should be using for communication. So for instance, Google Classroom, email, Seesaw, or Remind. We also explain that the difference between synchronous teaching and asynchronous teaching. So synchronous teaching is when everyone all meets at the same time between 9 and 10, and then that students will, log in at that time. Asynchronous is, a webinar or a webcast could be recorded and shared through Google Classroom, and students can watch all of that at their own time and perhaps provide a comment, post a discussion question, or anything like that. So what we had informed the teachers is that, they do not have to have synchronous meetings at all times. In fact, we really encourage them to, set aside some time, record that, and then make it available for students whenever they are available. And then I talked about the assessment earlier. So one formative and one summative assessment. And those are some of the tools. They could use Google Forms, Google Classroom, Synergy Assessment. And finally, we would like for the teachers and the students to be able to connect to one another too. So give them some time, some way. That's when the synchronous teaching or meeting can occur. But we know that there may be some students or teachers that would like to extend. So, teachers can do that, but this should not bear on the grade at all, because we all know how stressed everyone is. So we want to make sure that, the one on the left, the green ones, are the baseline expectations, but there could be extensions as well. So this is this daily schedule that was shared with staff and students and parents as well. As you can see, it's odds and evens. We have 1 hour dedicated to first period, third period, fifth and seventh on Monday, and then second, fourth, sixth, and 0 period on Tuesdays and Fridays, with Wednesday as a break. And again, these time slots are it's basically to just help the students structure their day. The teachers do not have to be, doing synchronous meeting at that time. They could just hold office hours, but we wanted to provide some kind of structure and expectation for students and staff, especially during these times, because during the first 2 weeks of the AHL period, they just said that what they really wanted was some kind of structure. Again, students do not have to log on to a device during the assigned class period. It's just a sign that, on Mondays, this will happen during first period. It says counselors during some of the time slots. And again, students are not required to meet with their counselors, but we want to make sure that students know that their counselors are available during this time, that the counselors can call a meeting with them, or they can request a meeting, or both. And I also know that, for mental health support, there are times when you just need to talk to a counselor whenever, and that is also okay. Phase 3 is about grading and additional student supports. And again, we are going to convene a task force on setting the criteria for the no mark grades and set up a system of tiered support for students. So grading guidelines, I believe this is under discussion right now after this presentation, which is Board Policy 5121. And it says JUHSD recognizes that educational excellence requires a commitment to equity. Educational equity means that each student receives what they need when they need it to develop their full potential. So when an emergency situation occurs that prevents students from having access to the supports, resources needed in order to complete their work at home, students will not be negatively impacted or penalized. Therefore, when San Mateo County or the state of California or the US government declares a state of emergency, the board, with a recommendation from superintendent or designee, may decide to assign final grades of A, B, C, or pass. So based on that, I started drafting what that really means. So teachers in the same course will determine what's the criteria for an A, a B, or a C. Students who otherwise would earn a D or an F will receive a grade of pass. And pass means that a student will receive credits, but it will not be computed towards the student's GPA. I just received a note from Terry that yes, we will revise this to include the no mark grade as well. So the no mark may be awarded under special circumstances, and then the criteria is yet to be determined. And students who receive a no mark will have to retake the course if it's a required course for graduation or to move on to the next course sequence. And this does not affect the student's grade point average. Some of the staff supports that we provided, we are getting hotspots for some of our staff that needs internet access. We have a backlog right now with ordering. We've ordered this about a week and a half ago, and we're expecting to get this in the next few days. We also asked the staff to be able to take home a Chromebook or a laptop if they need it to implement the at-home learning. tech tools and training. Again, Ms. Robinson had done such a phenomenal job in creating webcasts and webinars on our website. And her plan is to host a webinar where she will explain some tech tools to our staff. So she's done one on Google Classroom, Google Meet, Zoom, how to sync Google Classroom with a Synergy gradebook. And we also, our staff also receive one-on-one support from our TOSAs, EdTechs, instructional coaches, teacher leaders, program specialists, and other staff. As far as the curriculum support, again, the same people that I mentioned also provided support to our staff members. We have some online programs that our staff members are using, like Apex, IXL, some resources from the AP from College Board, Newsela. And we've also asked them to schedule a planned collaboration time this week. So this week, our teachers are supposed to be collaborating and working together. And what we had asked them to do was to list when they would be able to meet and their Zoom link or their Google Meet link, so that one of the TOSAs or one of, or Ms. Robinson will be able to drop in and answer any questions. Ms. Ashford also created some curated online resources for our teachers, and Ms. Shreve worked on some online teaching model handouts that was handed out to the teachers. For the student supports, what we would like, well, during the first 2 weeks, we really wanted to know which students needed some kind of support or access. Our goal was to really make sure that a student has contacted or connected with at least one adult at their school site. So we had asked the teachers to fill out a spreadsheet if they had made contact with their students, either through submission of an assignment, through a phone call, through email, or any sorts of means. And if they didn't, they were supposed to make a phone call or attempt other means to contact the student. So as of Sunday, as you can see, most of our students have reached out to our staff members, or there's been some kind of connection. You know, Terra Nova, shout out to them, 100% has been contacted, Westmore 99.8, and we are still continuing to follow up with these students. We also set up some loaning Chromebook policies and system. We're also looking for hotspots for internet access for our students. Some of them needed printed materials, so we worked on that too. And materials were delivered to students with IEP. And now Ms. Ambrose will be talking about wellness supports.
Uh-oh, there it is. Hi, everybody. So Tiana, I was really both happy that you spoke up and sad because maybe the students on the board can help me brainstorm some ideas about how we can reach out. So I'll go over what's going on in the wellness world, and then whenever it's time for feedback, you guys can let me know. So we have set up a whole system. All the wellness counselors are up and ready to go, and actually really wanting to meet with students and not getting a lot of traffic. But I'll tell you what support we have set up for our different constituents. So for students, we have available, and just so board members know, I've done a great amount of research on HIPAA, FERPA, confidentiality, privacy. Some of you may know that HIPAA has been greatly relaxed by the Office of Civil Rights for all healthcare providers right now. And even though that's the case, HIPAA is the Privacy Act, Healthcare Privacy Act, we do really care mental health deeply about students' right to confidentiality. All mental health practitioners are in uncharted territories right now doing telehealth, right? Because you guys see me right here. Theoretically, it looks like I'm alone, but actually my wife is like literally 3 feet away from me, and we live in 650 square feet. So if I was a student meeting with a wellness counselor, you know, I think the reason we're not getting a lot of traffic is because, you know, somebody might be behind that wall or right there that they don't want to have here talking. So we have video chat, we have video sessions available. I shouldn't have said chat, video sessions available. We have phone sessions available. Not, we all have a Google Voice number now because we're not allowed to give our cell phone numbers out. So we have video sessions through Zoom or a platform called doxy.me. which is HIPAA compliant, which is nice. And then we also, through doxy.me, can make a session, a confined session for a text session. We don't want to use our Google Voice numbers for texting because we don't want students to just text us all day. There's a lot of liability reasons for that. So we would schedule a text session, do it on the doxy.me, the HIPAA compliant platform, and that would work. And so that's starting to happen, and we're thinking that that will happen more because students really want to have confidential sessions, which is totally understandable and reasonable. And then I am conducting daily mindfulness for students. The last 2 weeks or whatever we've been in, it's been at 11 because I was thinking students would want to be sleeping in. And I've had anywhere from 9 to 1 student. I have one student who's come to every session, which is just beyond charming. I'll move that to that, the free time on that schedule that Corrine showed you. There's a chunk of time in the middle that says counseling of each day. And I'm going to move, I think the student sessions, I scheduled it, now I can't remember, to 12:15. And then there's also an app that's all these are hot links, but we need to show you all that stuff. But on the webpage under the wellness tab, the at-home learning page, you can see all of this stuff. It's all there. The Atlas app is a teenage stress and well-being app that's been made by some folks at Stanford, and they've made it free to all of our students. And we carefully looked at their policy around data and feel very comfortable they're doing it all over the Bay Area, offering that the free sessions. I mean, the free access to that. And I'll also just say for the student meetings, I sent an email out to every student in the district via their Gmail address. And then the wellness counselors have on the school email contacted all the students that have come, like their frequent visitors, the students, and any student they're worried about. And now they're moving through the phase of contacting like anyone that's come to see them. The thing is that's complicated, and for the students to help me think this through, is we are not calling home and saying, hi, this is the wellness counselor. I talked to your student at one point 3 or 4 months ago, because that violates the student's right to confidentiality. So we're only reaching out through student email, through the district email. And I'm not sure students are looking at all their district email, or they're getting too much, or I don't know. So I don't know how else to get students. The wellness counselors are trying to get this all posted on their individual websites of each school. So the other thing that we have is the same options for parents and guardians. If they want to meet with us, we are very open to that. We imagine that they are some of them are very stressed. And a lot of wellness counselors right now are helping some parents and guardians navigate resources in the area like housing or food or things like that, which we always do anyways, but there's a more need for that. We're also available to do some one-on-one support for staff if they request it. We're not offering to be staff, to be therapists for staff, but we're definitely here to be sounding boards and to help stress management with staff. And I am also holding a daily staff mindfulness session, which has been fairly well attended. Something like 12 to 20 people every day are coming to that. And I'll also change the time for that to fit our schedule. And those links for student and staff mindfulness I've shared with Jefferson L and with the County Office of Ed, and told them that they can freely share those. And then the last thing that we've done is we've created resource pages. So on the main district at-home learning website, the wellness page, which Corrine very sweetly over the weekend, when she should have been resting, redesigned and made it much more easy to access all the stuff that we have. There's a student resource page, there's a parent guardian resource page, and then there's mindfulness resources. I will be the first to say that those resource pages are packed full of information. I mean, as you all know, there's enormous amounts of information coming out. So we tried to organize them into sections so that people could navigate them more easily. But we really wanted to put essential information out there. So they're organized into sections like housing, meals, food, information for immigrant families and undocumented families, mental health, wellness, physical health, at-home learning tips, parenting tips, things like that. So that's it for me.
Next slide is
So
questions.
yeah, board members or student trustees, any questions, feedback. We really want feedback.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, it's okay. I have a question. There are some teachers at my school who still haven't set up. There's no Google Classroom, or they haven't really communicated with their students. Is there something we can do about that?
Well, I'm going to let Ms. Baca respond to part of this, but the data she was showing you, when, for example, when you saw that 100% of the students had engaged with their teachers, that meant with at least one teacher. So we're relying on the teachers reporting to us that they reached out to students.
Mhm.
But because of this, and now that we know that we're going to be doing this through the end of the year, Ms. Baca has been investigating another tool to help us keep track of that. So I'm going to let Ms. Baca talk about Little Sis.
So Mr. Meyer and I are exploring this app called Little SIS, which basically is a management console for Google Classroom to ensure that, teachers are assigning work through Google Classroom. So we are working on monitoring that.
Okay. Is there anything I could do now to contact this teacher? I mean, I've tried emailing them. I haven't gotten anything. So.
John, if you have a concern about one of your teachers, I think I should probably clarify that in a communication to students. And I should probably let teachers know that that might be happening. I mean, part of the reason we don't have some of these protocols in place is because we thought we were only going to do this for a few weeks and then for a few more weeks. But now that we're looking to the end of the year, we have to find a way to monitor whether students are responding and whether teachers are reaching out to students. So, and that's why this little SIS, the little SIS is something that's important. But you don't have to say that teacher's name out loud here.
Yeah.
But I would say I think it's probably appropriate for you to, we don't even have a protocol for that. Will you wait until I think about that? I want to talk with Ms. Casey about that. So hold on to that and I won't forget it.
All right. Thank you.
I also want to point out that some of our staff members still does not have a reliable internet access. So we are working on that as well. So that could be some of the reasons as to why this is happening. And again, we're trying to use this week as a planning period so that when you come back from spring break, there will be something posted.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Tiana,
also,
you were going to say something?
Yeah. So so even though the teachers have been telling us to check our email, it's hard to keep up with it. That I don't know about other people, but at least like my email gets swamped with like Google Classroom notifications, which some of them are helpful, but then some of them aren't. So I haven't turned it off. So it's kind of hard to sift through that. But like I didn't even know that all of those resources were available. But I was thinking that having like a centralized place for all the resources would be really helpful. I was thinking like since everyone's already using Google Classroom, that it'd be kind of cool if we had like a wellness Google Classroom kind of, so that we could maybe like post reminder like, hey, there's a wellness thing today at 11, here's the link for it. Because I don't know about other people, but I get notifications when things are posted on my phone, so I think that'd be helpful if
So
that
that
was
is
there.
one of the changes Ms. Baca made in phase 2 was asking teachers to post important, like any videos or podcasts, due dates, things like that through Google Classroom. Because if you can imagine a student getting a notification every day in the email from every teacher, wouldn't take long for the mailbox to fill up. So she's working on that piece. This is probably a really good time for me to put an idea in the board's head, because I know Karina and I have been thinking about it. So some districts have been able to organize a little more quickly because they have something called a learning management system. And that's something that's can be used for a lot of things, but it's a really good way to provide distance learning. And so you can set up the discussions. There's a way to keep track of each class and what the assignments are, and it's all in one place. We're trying to use Google, but Google's free and it's great, but it's not the same thing as some of the learning management systems that districts already have in place, but they're expensive. So it's something for us to be thinking about. Ms. Baca, did you want to add anything?
Nope.
Other feedback? Students? Joe? Well, I am interested as the superintendent in knowing how much time you are spending a day. If you can somehow separate out the time students are spending talking to friends or that, how much time to the nearest, let's say nearest hour, are you spending either engaging with teachers or getting work done? John, do you
Well,
mind starting?
sorry.
No, go for it, Joe.
All right. So for me, I found that, typically it is pretty similar to a regular school day time-wise, actually, because most of my teachers are deciding to schedule their video conferences and stuff like that during their respective class periods anyway, for, typically about 30 minutes, but sometimes longer. And because of that, you mix in that with any work that's assigned, it usually does add up to being about, your 8 to 3 usual school day. So I think in that regard, it hasn't been like a tremendous amount of work, but it also hasn't been like totally relaxed. It's been pretty consistent time commitment wise to how it was before. I will say that my particular case, it's a little bit more because my journalism class is we're trying to put out news pages almost twice a week. So that's extra work outside of it. But other than that, it's been pretty consistent, interaction with teachers and work. So stuff like that.
So Joe and rest of the students, Jay, can you move back? Can you go back a slide to where the new schedule was for, what was it? Back again. More. There it is. So Joe and then the rest of the students, do you think that this new plan that teachers are going to begin, they don't begin this until the Monday after break, so it would be a week from this coming Monday. Will this help at all for you to have only meet with half of your classes on 2 days, half of your classes on the other, and then nothing on Wednesday?
I think it's
good.
Go for it, Tiana.
So I think for some teachers it would work really well, but I'm just thinking about like with my AP classes, particularly my AP literature class, that we have a lot that we're doing that like we're meeting every day from 9 to 10 just to like talk about the stuff and trying to keep it like as much like normal school as possible. So that teacher was a little bit concerned about being able to get everything done that we needed to, just because it's an AP class and we're still hoping to, like, expecting to take the AP exam.
So Tiana, was it explained to you that the College Board is actually reducing the amount of curriculum that students have to learn? They cut back, I can't remember what it was, maybe Corrine remembers, but at least a fourth of the curriculum is not going to be on the test. So they're reducing the test to 45 multiple choice questions only. Has that been explained?
Yeah.
Okay. So concerns for AP. Other students? Or Tiana, why don't you comment on your workload? What is your workload looking like each day?
So it's interesting. Some teachers have been really good about doing the video calls with students and recording them and being able, and that's been really helpful. But then some of them, they were just kind of like, here's the work, now go do it. And I was just kind of like, okay. So it's been a little rough for me, just trying to organize everything, because usually I have everything like I physically have like all the work that I have to do laid out. So just switching to like all digital has been kind of difficult, especially like looking on Google Classroom. It's nice that everything's there, but then keeping track of all the assignments has been kind of difficult for me to like find everything and to make sure that I've done everything, just because it kind of gets like swamped under the feed. So yeah, and I don't really know what a good fix for that would be, but that's just kind of been my
Okay,
experience thus far.
So-
we're listening to that.
I wonder, Tiana, if this would help at all, maybe a webinar on how to navigate Google Classroom and to find, what is assigned and not assigned, because I know that, I have my third grader, she's having the same problems. She is missing all of this work and she couldn't find where it is. So maybe some kind of like quick tutorial might help. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think for the teachers as well, because I have some teachers that they'll post something on Google Classroom, but it won't be like an assignment, or it'll be something that, at least for my AP Environmental Science class, there were some things that we had turned in before all of this happened, but it was still put as an assignment on there. And then Google Classroom showed it as missing, even though it was in the grade book as like that I had turned it in. So I think getting that a little better with just showing like when the work has been turned in, when it hasn't been, that I think that's also contributing to my not being able to keep track of what I have to do and what I've already done. So yeah.
Good suggestion. Thank you.
Thanks for that feedback. And I want to remind everybody that for probably half of our teachers, Google Classroom was a new experience. And, after one training, they were jumping right into phase one. So they've got a little bit of a learning curve too. John, did you want to weigh in?
Yes. From my experience, it's been a lot of mixed. Again, there's some teachers I haven't spoken to since the last day of school, back all the way back then. There are some where they've just been uploading constant streams of work. They've been trying to keep our class on our best pace as we can, and it's really nice. And there are other teachers who have just sort of there's just one huge big review packet of what we've learned and just given us to that with no really sort of structure and just let us have at it. And so I find myself focusing a lot more on other classes where and then other classes where I don't see myself in, I've sort of just not really paying attention to them because other tasks take more of my time. There's no really equal distribution between the amount of time in my classes. But in general, the amount of time I've just been spent working, it's close to, it's not as much, but it's close to what a normal school day would be, combining working on homework and actually being in Zoom calls or learning from my teachers.
Yeah, kind of going off of that, I've noticed that the teachers that do have the Zoom calls or the Google Meet or whatever, that the teachers that do have that every day and are interacting with the students, that has been really helpful. But then the teachers that haven't been doing that I've kind of put those classes on the back burner, and it's been difficult to kind of organize and figure out like where I should put my focus with those classes.
So I think one of the things that we need to figure out, we the adults, is how do we communicate that to teachers, that students are finding that valuable, that teachers are checking in some kind of a routine way. But for those teachers who are not, it kind of leads students in thinking that that work can also go to the back burner. So I think we had to figure out how to communicate that. How about some of the other students?
For me, I've been spending, compared to the other students on here, like not that much time on, I haven't been given that much work, except for my AP classes, which actually gave me more consistent work over the week. All the other classes, I think they gave some work in the beginning and I was finished with that, so they haven't really been giving me work now. I have not had any Zoom calls with any of my teachers, but I think that my AP teachers are the ones who are most on top of this whole AHL thing.
Christy, have you been doing any synchronous courses with your teachers? Like through Google Classroom or anything like
Oh
that?
yes, yes, all of my almost all of my teachers have been using Google Classroom.
Okay. Okay. Board members, I'll be quiet now, and this is a good opportunity for you to ask questions and provide feedback.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi, Nick. Welcome.
Hey. So thank you everybody for the feedback, especially, I mean everybody, but especially students. It's interesting because where I'm working, we're finding it's hard to get in contact with some students by phone. A lot of students, depending on the level of truancy or just chronic absenteeism or just absenteeism altogether, like we saw in statistics with Thornton, it's going to be hard to get in contact with some students, and of course with different family situations and contact information, it's not always the same situation. So I just want to give a shout out to everybody, you know, doing that work, and of course to the students too. It's understandable that everybody's going to have a different schedule about how they approach the work. We do have a schedule, but these are times that are changing very fast, right? Last week we were thinking May 1st. Of course, within the span of less than a week, now we're looking at, you know, the school year being closed indefinitely, right? So I can imagine how students and even some staff might be a little bit thrown off by that in terms of adjusting their lives and working with things at home. And so, you know, unless you've done at-home learning or it's something you do regularly in your free time as an educator or as a student, my expectation as a teacher and in special education at that, and as a board member would be that we work at the pace that we're working at, that we push ourselves, of course, you know, to try to adapt to new things, but to not fault ourselves for not being able to keep up at the same pace we would if we were on what was the regular schedule before, right? So best of luck, of course, with all those tests, whatnot. I guess my only question would be, what ways could we improve the schedule or the asynchronous learning where we're picking up on videos later on, right? I do this. I'm in an online program right now. Sometimes you can plug in later. Is it more effective or is it more helpful to have a flexible schedule? This is for the students, of course. Or is it more helpful to be able to plug in during real-time live class and lectures?
I think definitely having it live is, at least for me, is better. It just like feels more normal. That feels like a more normal school day. I think it's more motivation for me to actually like get up and be there and do the work. So yeah, definitely like live, like at a specific time each day is better for me at least.
Got it. Anybody else?
I really think you need a mix of both. I agree with Tiana, having kind of the structured schedule of live meetings and stuff really does help. But I think you also need to have that flexible backup plan just for the people who, for whatever reason, you know, can't, you know, fit into that schedule, especially right now with everything that's going on. Everyone's lives are so kind of thrown into turmoil right now. Um, you can't necessarily always expect people to be available at a certain time. So I think providing that option is very important, but I think it's also very important to provide an option for people to, you know, record these meetings for people to watch later, or just send out, you know, other work that doesn't necessarily need instruction and can be done at the student's pace. You really do need both to be able to accommodate everyone to the biggest scope, I think.
Let me just weigh in here. I
Mhm.
mean, not only do we have some students who can't necessarily conform to that schedule. So remember, that schedule is just to organize teachers so that students don't have to choose between two teachers and, you know, which synchronous classroom are they going to go into. So it's not just about the students having the flexibility. We also have teachers, a large number of teachers who have children at home who are also doing learning during the day. And so I can't imagine as a math teacher being home with my three kids who are angels 24/7 and trying to teach my students while trying to get my own children to do their work. So we also have teachers who are recording sessions in the evening after their kids are in bed and posting. So the flexibility isn't necessary just for the students. Our teachers need that same flexibility.
I'm finding as I've listened to what everybody has said and the presentation, I'm actually just kind of blown away, quite frankly, at the depth of thought that has been put into the plan so far, and I, especially given the circumstances that we're in. You know, when I looked through the at-home learning crisis management website with all the details that's there, I'm impressed with the depth of the information that we have. You know, looking at the wellness page is remarkable. The resources that we've listed there, the thought that has been put into phase 1 and phase 2 thus far. I've been very impressed, and the amount of communication that has gone out has certainly been very, very good. I know that Terry, I think what you shared with regards to the schedules that the teachers and themselves have with their families, I think that is an important thing to consider, and that everybody is, and there's a fair amount of grace that we all have to extend to each other in these remarkable circumstances. And the fact that we're doing what we're doing to try and maintain at least some semblance of structure and still try and attain a measure of equity for the students and families who are under-resourced is to be commended. I mean, there's always more we can do, but the fact that we've done this in such a short period of time is remarkable. So thank you all for the hard work that you've been doing.
Is there another board member who wants to provide feedback or ask questions on this section before we move on?
I just want to piggyback off of Andy, and I am having firsthand experience with being a parent and homeschooling a child and trying to work at home at the same time, and it's been really difficult. So I commend all the students. I don't know how Corinne puts things together and have to help her third grader do homework while trying to do work. So it's been personally difficult for me, and I am also trying to struggle with having a routine at home while I have the 4-year-old screaming, and then trying to help with the first grader with homework, and then also do my own work as well. So I'm working like 15-hour days personally. So I mean, being a student and then trying to actually do the work, I can only imagine how difficult it is in, being on the other side of it and also trying to accomplish your work. And if your brother and sister are there screaming, or, you have to help them do stuff. I mean, I can't imagine how difficult it is. So I want to say to all the students to hang in there, and thank you to all the admins and all the staff that have done all these things to really accommodate everybody and try to make it as equitable for everybody as possible. So thank you so much.
You know, Carla, it's not just Corrine who has a kidlet at home.
I
Imagine
know.
Tony trying to do virtual interviews with Dom at home. And, you know, kids
Yes.
like to be by their parents, right? You're home and
Yes.
they're right. As soon as you're on the phone, your kids are right by you. And Tina has
Yes.
Eric at home.
Yes.
So April has an infant at home.
Yes.
So that's why back in one of those priorities, flexibility has to be something we're always thinking about.
Yes, I absolutely agree. So thank you all so much. I really appreciate everything that you have all done.
Rosie or Kalima?
I also appreciate everything that everyone's done. It's a really crazy time. I do really appreciate hearing from the students right now, because you've helped me. I feel like I'm not a good manager with my own daughter, you know, but then there are times she's working and I'll ask her what's going on, and she said, it's Google Classroom's acting stupid. It's not saving my stuff. I mean, and I can't help her. And she's actually looking forward to having a structure, because this self-pacing is not working. I don't want to be the one to be on her all the time. But also, she just said to me yesterday that she's really stressed out by all this. And I hadn't realized it, and I never asked her, because I know that I'm stressed out by all this working. You know, a lot of us are working from home. You know, she doesn't necessarily want to, it's just the two of us in the house. So she doesn't necessarily want to spend that much time with me. And we have to be in separate parts of the house in order for me to do my work and she to do hers. And then also I'm always wondering, is she on her phone with her friends? So it's, yeah, and she works differently. And, you know, I just really appreciate what the students have said right now, because you've helped me in being able to ask her the right questions. And also, I think, I mean, our team at the district office and entire district, everyone's in it. It sounds trite, but we're all in it together. And you've proven that, because of what you're able to pull together in such a short time. And just this presentation thus far. But I really appreciate what you're doing. And I know that my daughter appreciates it as well, because she sees how stressed I am. And I'm going to check out the wellness resources, because I didn't even realize I wasn't paying attention myself. And I think we should really make others pay attention. And with all the postings that we do, and especially maybe our JUHSD you know, site, and you know, the tweets that we send out. But thank you everyone for all you're doing.
Ms. Salahuddin, and I know Ms. Casey wants to say something too.
Monica can go ahead.
Monica, can you hear
me?
us?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I just had a few comments. Back when the students were talking, I just wanted to mention that, you know, we do have a group of students here that are pretty driven. And so I want to just think about those students who maybe are not as academically driven and don't necessarily have that in their pocket. Maybe they just haven't gotten academically driven, not to say that they don't care about their schoolwork, but that they just haven't kind of gotten there yet. And I also want to bring up that there are a lot of students who are dealing with other issues. You know, where's their next meal coming from? A parent that may have lost a job and that they're having to work and do things for, or taking care of younger brothers and sisters, or you know, an elder in their household that's ill. And then the last thing I wanted to say was, you know, I have a situation where, you know, my wife can be in the other room and I can shut the door and go in another room. But what if you only have one or two spaces and several people living in there? And I mean, even when she walks through, like, I can't help but just look up and see what she's doing. And then I'm like, oh, she's got something to eat. What do I, you know, so I can't even concentrate for those distractions. So I just wanted to make that, those comments for us to think about.
Thank you. Noted.
All right. Cool. So we can move on.
Okay. Jay, can you give control over to Tina, please?
Okay, now that I have control, I was having trouble unmuting because it wasn't the same place. Anyway, good evening, everyone. So just like our teachers and our administrators, our classified staff is hard at work trying to make sure that all the needs of all of our community is met. So we started with food service. We wanted to make sure that our students were able to have their meals that they're used to throughout all of this time. So we have been serving breakfast and lunch together every day. So theoretically it's lunch for that day and breakfast for the next day. And we have been serving about 200 to 250 meals a day. And we've been serving them every day. From 11 to 1. The kitchen staff, a lot of them are over 65. So we wanted to be very careful and make sure all of the people who are most at risk do not come into work. And that meant that either we had to bring our staff in every single day or we could have them do a little bit of a rotation and bring in some volunteers. So that's what we went with, is that pretty much everybody's working every other day. And we're utilizing volunteers to fill in, to allow us to make those 200 and some meals each day. We also, because we thought it was going to be a short amount of time, we have a very limited menu right now. It's all cold food and it's repeating. So now that we know that we need to move into a longer term situation, we are going to start serving meals just twice a week. So on Tuesdays, they'll get 2 meals, 2 breakfasts and 2 lunches. And then on Thursdays, they'll get 3. In the transition for this week, this Friday, there will be 2 meals. So that'll cover Friday and Monday. And then when they come Tuesday, they'll get Tuesday and Wednesday. Then they come Thursday and they get they get Thursday, Friday, and Monday. And with those meals, we're going to try to add a little bit more variety, have a couple of things that they can reheat at home. That'll be, not all cold food, but it'll still be somewhat limited because we need to make sure that it's highly portable and that it holds up for those 3 days, or 3 days over a weekend. So really 5 days that we need the meals to be able to hold up for. And we believe that we have the food to do that. We also felt like we needed to back off on needing volunteers because we just want to limit the number of people who are interacting on a day-to-day basis. So creating those bubbles of people who interact, and also practicing the social distancing when they do work together. So with this system, we only need, what we do is we're going to bring everybody in on Mondays and Wednesdays to do the high prep, and then only bring 1 person in on the Tuesdays and Thursdays to pass out food, and have nobody come in on Fridays. And so that way people will be working 2 to 3 days a week. And with all of our sites, with Terra Nova and Jefferson, we have enough people that we don't need any help. But Westmore, because just more of those workers were older, we're going to bring 2 van drivers in to supplement the Westmore staff. And as you probably know, we are delivering meals to our special education students who qualify for free and reduced lunch. We offered that to all of the special education families. And we said that we could bring meals for their siblings as well, so that they didn't have to worry about how they were going to feed all of the kids in the home. So we are delivering about 70 meals a day to, I think it's around 30 households. So we'll move those deliveries now to just twice a week as well. And so
our van drivers and our kitchen workers typically do not work during spring break, and we are so grateful that they have been willing to commit to coming in next week and not putting any suspension in this service. They have really gone above and beyond, and I'm like, it chokes me up to think about what they're really doing every day, and how much I appreciate it. And you know, as you see here, we are putting all safety precautions in place that we can. The custodians are there to disinfect the kitchens every day. They have masks and gloves when they're interacting, and disposable aprons when they're interacting with the public, passing out the food. We're trying to be really careful about the food too, making sure people know that it's only intended to be out either for a certain number of hours. So they need to either eat it or get it in the fridge by 2 p.m. And we have campus supervisors there to support them with managing any students who come to congregate, because that's really what we need to avoid, is making sure that people just come to the campus to get the food and move along. And so they've been great help to us. The maintenance and operations staff, as I mentioned, the custodians are doing a great job supporting our kitchen workers, as well as the office staff who come in. So the custodial staff has been working already on a rotational basis, so that we have one staff member on site every day for the amount of time that the campus is open, and a little bit before and a little bit after, to make sure things get disinfected everywhere that visitors and staff have been, and that they can close things up and make sure everything's secure. Our grounds workers have not been really working. They've been on an on-call basis, but we have to get them motivated, or not motivated, they're motivated, they want to work, but we have to get them moving now. We have to mobilize them, is what I was trying to say, because we're starting to see that that if we leave fields and other grounds not maintained, we're going to start losing our investment that we've made in that. And it also increases our risks of getting really rodent infestations. And so next week is when they're going to start working. Again, we're going to do a rotational schedule so that they're not interacting with each other. We have fewer people on campus. And then we'll still be able to secure our investments in the property and make sure that things will be ready for opening whenever that might be, summer school or in the fall. And then our tradesmen and women have been doing things that are on call. The upkeep of the pools has been a priority, as well as other areas that come up if we have you know, an electrical problem or plumbing problem. So they have been mostly just on an on-call basis, but we feel like we have to start gearing up for what will happen when we reopen. So we have a lot of summer work that has to be done every year. All of our safety equipment and our fire extinguishers need to be maintained. We have a lot of seasonal work that we usually do over the summer, and we're worried that we're not going to be able to do that over the summer. So working with Marcus and with his team, they've come up with a plan to start that work now so that it can be done in a slower pace. So not so many people need to be there at a time, so that they can be on a rotational basis and keep their social distancing, but go ahead and start that summer work, and so that it can be sure to be done by the time we reopen. Some other projects that they're going to start working on are the summer construction at Westmore. We are hoping that project's going to keep moving along, and there are, you know, we need to move things out of some classrooms and into other classrooms, and out of the office and into other areas. So that was supposed to be done in a really short time frame, right as school closed. And we're going to go ahead and do that over a longer period of time so that it can be fewer people that interact with each other. And one thing I wanted to point out too is we are allowing flexible schedules for people who have people that they have to take care of, whether they're kids or older individuals. But we have some folks who say, you know, I can't really work these hours or those hours. And so we're being really flexible with that to make sure that people can can still be a part of the team. And then in the business office, we're taking care of all those essential tasks. We're making sure people get paid, making sure bills get paid, and that essential things get ordered. We're spending a lot of time talking with staff who are concerned about something that needs to be taken care of by the business office. You know, oh, I got married and I forgot to put my spouse on the insurance, and you know, those kind of things. So we're keeping up with all of that. All of the business staff is working primarily from home. They've all been set up with what they need to do that. And then they're coming into the office only as needed to get things to the county office or, you know, into the workflow. And then our construction projects are continuing. There is a provision in the latest order from the San Mateo County Health Officer that says that if your project is essential, and they give you some definitions of essential, that you can continue to work. And so at your meeting, at the board meeting on Friday night, there will be a resolution that you guys will have the opportunity to pass that will allow us to continue to work on the Westmore modernization project, because that's creating new classrooms that we need to have by a certain time, as well as the faculty and staff housing project, because that's an affordable housing project. So they're saying that those are essential to get our housing, get people who need housing. So, but we need to pass a resolution to be able to continue that work. The other projects that we're working on with facilities have come they're slowed down a little bit in this time. A lot of places, you know, we have to interact a lot with the city of Daly City. They have limited hours, and I have limited bandwidth, but we are still moving forward on those projects, and I'll keep you posted as those go. And that is the operations piece of it. I also wanted to give you just a little sense of some of the things that I'm considering. And, you know, we all are considering when we're moving forward with this. I had a meeting with all the CBOs in the county. This is actually, today was the first time that all the CBOs met since the beginning of this crisis, which seems surprising why we haven't met sooner, but we just started trying to think about all the things that are going to impact our budgets and how we're going to be able to plan for next year with such uncertainty. So it's going to be really important that we are really thoughtful about how we're spending our money and making sure that we are really focusing on just essential things right now, so that we don't get ourselves into trouble in the long run. So there are a number of things that will likely come in lower costs because of this crisis, and then a whole slew of other things that will come in higher costs because of this crisis. One thing, we did get the actual amount for the SB 117 COVID response funds. It came out to $17.38 per ADA, which is about $70,000 for our district. So all of this I don't have numbers for, but they are things that will impact us and that I wanted you to start, you know, being conscious of, and we'll talk more about it when we get to our budget workshop in the future. Questions, comments?
Hey, any feedback, questions from board members?
Yeah, my one question would be, where does this leave us with Chartwell's, considering our decision a couple of weeks ago?
Good question. So I did get the RFP for a new food management company submitted to CDE Monday. I think it was, no, I don't know. But they say they're going to have it reviewed by, today's Wednesday, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So they said it was going to be today. I did not get it today. But the goal is that if we can release it by Monday, they think we're still on track to be able to do a new RFP and have a new group come in. The timeline's super tight. So if we come across any bumps, I may be coming to you and recommending something else. But at this point, I'm just recommending that we continue with the course of action that we had planned.
Great, thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah. Thank you for the report. One question on substitutes. I can see this in other districts as well. There has been a lot of communication or updates on how they're going to be retained. Obviously, I see there on the slide prior or after that the substitutes are listed as a savings. I would wonder, and I'm sure people are doing work on this, maybe Monica or anybody else, have the substitutes themselves been communicated with in terms of their status and their retention, given that they may or may not be filing for unemployment? Hopefully they are. I would imagine that we've sent some communication. It might help their income in terms of the federal stimulus with the extra $600 a week. I imagine that's probably what's going to make the difference in a lot of people's lives. But when we return in the fall, we could be looking at shorter substitutes, which will affect sick leave, and any teacher who needs to take time off. We won't have staff to not to replace them, but put the sub in for them if we've lost their service. So where are we in terms of that communication, or what negotiation, if any, was reached?
So I'll start, and then if Monica or Tony want to jump in, they can. So we have put out communication to the sub pool about unemployment benefits, how to apply. The business office came up with a step-by-step how to submit your application. And we've had one of our payroll specialists has sat on the phone with people as they've gone through, because it can be more complicated than you think. And so I feel like we've done a pretty good job supporting with them with getting on unemployment. We are still in the process of talking with AFT about the potential of any other compensation or any other ways that we can support them. But I do agree with you that there definitely could be a need to do something to entice people to come back, or to reward them for their time that they've been with us, that they stick with us. And I think that that's something we could consider.
Also, I just want to say that I know negotiations are ongoing with the substitutes. So as that is an ongoing item, we can't talk about it in an open session, but if you would like, they can put a report or an update in a Friday report, or we could add something to a closed session, but we don't talk about ongoing negotiations in open session.
Of course, this is for the update to make sure that we're actually having negotiations. So thank you for the update.
Yeah, she told us, informed us at the last meeting that process had kicked off. So I didn't know that, that's why I was saying it's ongoing.
May I also add, Nick, I do hear you, and we do realize that that's the one group of our employees who are not necessarily getting their regular paychecks. And so we reached out to them specifically with really clear, with a message and really clear instructions on how to apply for unemployment. And as Tina shared, Mike in the payroll department has been really, really helpful with a lot of those people. They've been calling him. So we've been trying to be very responsive to that group, especially.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Tina? All right, let's move on to HR.
Tony has control.
Okay, I'm not sure.
Tony, you're muted. There you go.
Hey, sorry, I was talking away. I gave all this really important information. Jake, I'm not sure how to advance the slide. I don't see that it's in my control.
I was able to just use the arrows on my keyboard.
I just tried that and it did not work.
Are you trying it right now?
Yep.
Okay, hang on, let me.
You know what, if you don't mind, I've got like 2 slides. I'll just say next slide.
That's fine with me.
I mean, because it's not working.
Yeah.
Thank you. So can you go back one slide, please? There's a slide that seems to be missing. That's really weird. There's a slide missing, Jake. Slide 29.
Hey, Jake, can you sign out of your Google or unpresent and then present it again?
I'm working on it.
While we have a minute, I didn't do a slide on this, but what I just wanted to let you know that the Daly City Youth Health Center is also still, everyone is still functioning. Everyone's working from home, and Melissa has been amazing in helping get the interns and the new counselor that we have over there set up with being able to do virtual appointments for counseling, and our health educators over there have been helping the health teachers with some of the at-home curriculum. So they're all really contributing as well. So
You just made me realize that I left something off of one of my slides, so I just added it. Okay, well, wait a second. I can start talking, I guess. I'll look at my own slide and you'll see it in just a minute. Oh, here it is. Okay.
I'm working on it. Hang on.
Okay. I'm just going to start talking about the first slides. It's just not big informational. I just wanted to thank Monica and really all of AT, because we negotiated our agreements, and it was really, Monica was in New York at the time, and she put together, you know, some of her leadership from AFT to negotiate, and it went really smoothly. And I think that, I think I'm looking at the wrong slide. It went really smoothly, and they brought up concerns that they had, and we talked about what some of the fixes that we thought, and we feel like we came up with a really good agreement that sort of served our employees, but also, you know, the district's interests as well. So that was really good, and I appreciate that. Monica and I have talked about meeting once people are back from spring break to essentially extend the agreement. We are in continuing negotiations regarding substitutes, and she put together a panel of some leadership with the substitutes, and we spoke last week and came up with some thoughts on that. So I think things are moving along really positively, so I'm thankful for that. We spoke with Teamsters kind of right when all this started, and just talked about some general ideas, and then the food service workers who are represented by Teamsters have been working. Their rep just reached out to us yesterday to say, okay, we should probably get something down in writing. So Tina, she contacted Tina, so we're gonna speak with her tomorrow. Next slide, please. Thank you. So essentially, we in the HR department are kind of business as usual, but remotely. So as soon as we all realized that we were going to be working from home, I have to say many of my staff were saying, well, I'll just work here. They wanted to just be at work. And I said, I won't be able to be at work every day because I have a child who needs me at home. And then we realized, yeah, everybody needs to be at home as much as possible. So we have weekly staff meetings prior to this. And thankfully, we've really moved in the HR department to doing things more digitally. So for instance, we have our meeting agendas and notes every Friday when we meet are all on our Google Doc, and we all add to it. So that was really easily transferred to working from home. We now meet twice a week rather than once a week to go over those regular staff meetings. And we're in contact. Poor Chelsea I am on the phone with her a lot. And I'm on the phone with Phyllis quite a bit as well. So we're still, you know, interviewing, we're adding forms on Inform K-12, we're doing onboarding. Everything now is e-documents, and I'll explain that a little bit. We're having, as I said, our virtual staff meetings and phone conferences. And I have really emphasized that we really need to be responsive to staff inquiries and needs. So I'll kind of go through the different positions. So my admin assistant, as I said, she's like been my right arm these last few weeks, especially organizing Zoom interviews and figuring out glitches. So we've done principal of adult programs, Zoom interviews, and we've done vice principal of Terranova Zoom interviews. And we, you know, I feel like we're iterating, okay, how are we gonna do this? This didn't work, now how are we gonna do this? So the first interview that we did, we created fillable PDFs for the scoring and comment sheets. And we realized that that was too difficult to do in real time with several people interviewing. So we went to the next set of interviews that we did. We did Google Forms where we had all the questions and all the ratings. And then that was instantaneous. People did their ratings, sent them right in. So we're kind of figuring it out as we go, what works and what doesn't work. And as Terry mentioned, you know, we're all kind of in our houses and trying to keep our families out of the room as we're doing these confidential interviews. But all of the people on the panels have been great, and the applicants have been really great, sort of understanding this new normal. Once we did that first round of Zoom interviews and the panel, then we discussed, and the panel put 2 people forward or actually 3 and 1 of them forward to the executive cabinet. We held real life executive cabinet interviews yesterday with the finalists, and we just practiced social distancing. There weren't many of us in the room, so we were able to do that because we do feel like we need to meet people in person before we hire them. So organizing those interviews, and a lot goes into that, kind of emailing out documents and all of that, onboarding, keeping up with all of that, annual notifications, posting of positions, and we're putting some more forms onto Informed K-12 to get them digitally out to people and then back to us with some sort of speed. So we've really moved to an online way of having people apply and having people get processed through, and we're seeing how good that is, especially in this time. The personnel specialist is, you know, working on people's credentials just as normal, but just from home, doing hiring and onboarding, processing unemployment claims and employment verifications. There's a lot of that happens, and a lot of it's really paper based. So we've had to have a lot of, you know, conversations trying to figure out the best way to get people's needs met quickly, and to be sure that we've got it where we have copies of these things, and, you know, communicating from the HR department to the business department. You know, we really have done a lot of handing people a paper with all the things that they would need to put them into payroll. So we're doing it all digitally now. The receptionist is really very helpful because real mail comes every day. And that's a lot of those employment verifications and stuff that people need for refinancing their homes and things. So she is checking the mail. The receptionist is going in 2 days a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. On the other days, it's been 5 days, it'll go down to 4. But on the other days, we've had a rotation with many people from the district office, clerical staff pitching in. So there are so many people that we have rotating. They don't have to come in a lot for that rotation. And we're thankful that our receptionist wanted to come in twice a week. So she's checking the mail and scanning it and making sure that it gets emailed to the person to deal with those pages, those papers. The receptionist is also testing applicants. We've only done a few because our applicants have, we're not having as many applicants right now, but she has tested a few people and they just practice social distancing. They're in a separate room right off of the district office doing the testing. We had announced weeks before this all happened that people's TB tests were due. They're due by the end of December of next year. So a lot of people are getting right on that and sending those in, and those go to her. And she's doing faxing, which is really funny, but faxing is more secure for some personal information than sending an attachment on an email. So there's still a lot of faxing that she's doing when she's there. And then finally, our substitute coordinator she became in charge of workers' comp. I put her in charge of workers' comp several months ago. So there are still workers' comp claims that are being processed and that are being new claims that are happening. So she's working on those, and it's web-based, so she's able to do that from home, and processing things like co-curricular stipends, etc. She's really helping the personnel specialists, supporting whatever in the needs that she has. Are there any questions about this slide before I move on? Okay. Jake, can you advance me, please? And then I finally wanted to give, as of today, this is the hiring update. But at the district level, we have our director of special education position open. We also, I just quickly added this, I forgot to include it, so I'm glad that Tina mentioned it. The Daly City Youth Health Center director, that position is open. We are getting applicants. In fact, I just saw one come through earlier today. Oceana has one chemistry position that has been offered and accepted. There was a PE position that was offered, accepted, and then decided against it, reneged. I don't know if that's the right word. So, but she does have other people that she's interviewing, so that's good. The mild to moderate SPED position is open. They have one additional allocation this year, and that's open. Terra Nova has a counselor position. It's a reduction of a 0.6 counselor, and that's pending, meaning it's been posted and somebody's been interested. It hasn't been offered. Somebody's interested. 2 mild to moderate positions that are open, and a school psych position that has been open for over a year. And we've posted that. It's been ongoing. We keep reposting it. Just today, I actually received an email from an organization that's a sort of a job posting board for school psychologists. So I responded to them. They responded back with the pricing and all of that. And I'm going to post that position there because I think that's a better place to look than where we've been looking because we haven't been successful. So Westmore has one Spanish position that has already been offered and accepted. I think I should have written accepted there. And a Spanish and French position that just recently became open. The teacher is retiring, and there's somebody that's pending. The position's still open, but there's somebody who's very interesting that looks very, very good. Thornton has one math position, and Denny is interviewing for that position. And then Jefferson has a chemistry position, one that's been accepted and one where he's currently interviewing. He's interviewed already a couple people that he says could be good, but he wants to give the others a chance. And he has a PE position that is open. So I want to say about these open positions, the thing that stands out to me, I think we will, have no problem filling these positions except for the special ed positions. So once again, we're kind of left in a spot where we've got some, not as many as last year, but some mild to moderate. We've got 3 mild to moderate classroom positions open. We've got a director of special education open and a school psych job open. So I've reached out to the principals and to Chrissy Cloget about interviewing again some teachers from the Philippines to see if there are people it's early enough that hopefully we can find some good special ed teachers. I'm not confident that we will find special ed teachers in the workforce right now. And so just today they said, yeah, we agree with you. So we're going to move forward on that. I've already got 6 resumes and I can ask for more. I reached out to an applicant actually who applied for a vice principal job, who's a school psych in another school district, like has all this special ed experience. And so I actually reached out to see if they might be interested in applying for either school psych or special ed director. They had some good qualifications. So I will, that's maybe a lead, but really I think filling the director position is going to be, it's going to be more difficult. The other thing I want to let you know is that regarding special education, we earlier this year, a group, Lori Musso from this San Mateo County Office of Ed, reached out to school districts to see if we might be interested in a program with a university that I can't remember the name, that has a really established program where they take largely, oftentimes community members or, you know, people who work in school districts like paras that are already involved, you know, parents and paras that might already be in our school district who have their bachelor's degree and who might be interested in becoming teachers. And they have a program where the district pays $20,000 for them to be an intern for the year. And they take a class, they take lots of classes. They have master teachers that are assigned to them in our schools. And they really train with us and with this program, and really intense training for a year. And then at the end of that year, they're credentialed. And they also will have a contract that they will work with us for, I think it's 2 to 3 years. So we, the executive cabinet discussed it earlier this year, and we signed on as a yes. The contract, it's still all being figured out, and it will be figured out by the end of this year so that we might start next year for that training year. Of course, the contract would go to the board, and, you know, but it's I think it's a real promising way to get some committed teachers that are sort of homegrown. And so then the real positive effect of that would be the year after next, we could have some teachers. So we signed on for 2 special ed positions. And so that's some hope for, you know, extra assistance in the coming years, and then some teachers. But the special ed hiring continues to be the place where it's quite difficult.
I want to just provide everybody with some perspective. We're looking at this page of, well, how many positions are there here? I mean, you can see how few positions we have, and it's April 1st. So I just want to applaud Tony and all the principals, because we've been moving up these hiring timelines and getting really aggressive about recruiting and getting people to sign on with us. And you can see it here. I mean, my first year, we had more positions than this that were still open in September. So thank you to Tony and to all the principals.
Thank you. Thank you. So I think that concludes my section. Any questions?
Yeah. Thank you for your work, of course, on this and the timeline. It is more promising given everything going on right now. Special ed is hard to find people I know who work in that field, and I switched for that reason, among reasons. But I was wondering, I know the program sounds promising, that we can start recruiting and growing our own. I think it's the logical approach a lot of times. And we wonder why we can't retain or don't retain more who are going into those programs locally, and where maybe people from our district or San Mateo County, you know, go to work is another question. But I'm sure this is being done. I just want to I guess, throw it out there. Any word back from San Francisco State's credential program, or even those who are considering majoring in education or even social science? Like you said, recruiting those who have a degree or graduating soon. You see the ramp up in the healthcare right now around the COVID-19 crisis. And, you know, these are people who may be completing 6-month to 2-year programs. We have people who we know, I mean, we do have people, there are people in the universities who are prospectively thinking of working, period, in any industry. I know myself as a graduate in social science, we think there are jobs where there may not be jobs, right? And education is a social science. So can we reach out to the College of, creative, of Liberal and Creative Arts? They renamed it, I state. So, or maybe some of the other, parts of the universities around us that may have graduates who are thinking very carefully about their options in employment over the summer, given everything right now.
Yeah, I do reach out to the credential programs at universities, but I'm not reaching out to all of the departments at the universities, Nick. So, yeah, I mean, I can certainly talk with the I would start with the credentialing departments and ask, their thinking. I do recall when I was in college, liberal studies was the one that many people went into when they were going to become teachers. So that would be a logical one. You also just triggered a thought. Like, I wonder if there will be any, relaxing of guidelines for internships and things like that because of so I'm not sure what the state might do, but we definitely do reach out to the universities, and I've forged some partnerships, mostly with San Francisco State and Notre Dame de Nemours. Those have been the two that have been most responsive, but yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Board members, anyone else? Okay, Jake, can I have control back? That sounds terrible.
You're in control.
Okay, just to kind of wrap things up, I wanted to just share a couple of things that are in the works. Melissa and I are working together on this. She's actually recruited some staff who want to work with us on developing a formalized plan that would allow us to solicit names of students, families, and even staff who need help on meeting their basic essentials and what those are. So maybe it's the light bill, maybe medication needs to be purchased and picked up, whatever that is. And at the same time, a process for soliciting names of staff and others who want to help and try to figure out, what kind of help they can provide. And thank you, board members. I know you've got some ideas already on that, and that's going to be really helpful. And then this group is also going to determine some kind of a process for how those resources have to be allocated. And I'm going to be talking with Tina because I don't want to do anything that looks shady to the public. So I'll be working with her on the right fiscal practices for that. In the meantime, while we're trying to get this going, Candibel, did you want to kind of step in and talk about what we're doing so far?
Sure. Well, so far on March 25th, as well as today, Dr. D has presented or actually communicated to the staff and to families, as well as to you all, in regards to the basic needs or essential needs of students and their families. So since then, we've actually had 2 teachers submit names of some of the families and students. So yesterday, 2 of those families have received their items. A lot of the, so far, the biggest item that people need is, of course, groceries. So we were able to get gift cards and deliver it to them, but it's been successful, and there is most definitely a need. So broadening it just a little bit more, so it offers, it's being offered to staff as well, actually, no, just students and families, but to have staff assist us is actually beneficial. So if there's any other staff members out there that know of any students and their families, please have them email me. As of right now, I'll be the contact person, but have them email me, and actually, if you all can email me, not the students or the families themselves, because I need to make the connection with with you all. So if you all can reach out to me and I can contact them on Dr. Deloria's behalf, that would be great.
Thanks, Candace. And then, of course, you know, now that we know that we're going to the end of the year, this is a partial list. People often ask, well, what's everybody doing now that schools are closed? Well, you've heard tonight, there's a lot of work that still has to be done. And here are some things that we're working on now. We need to take a look at and we will look at the policy on grades. I'm waiting. The superintendents have been promised that the state is going to provide us guidance with graduation requirements. So I was ready to make a recommendation to the board, but now I'm going to pause and see what the state has to say. I've also made a commitment. I have a meeting tomorrow with the principals and Corrine and Doreen to talk about alternative graduation plans. And I received, just before the meeting started tonight, the mother of one of my math students from last year sent me an email saying that she was so sad to see that the graduation ceremonies had to be canceled as they're currently scheduled, but was hopeful and was relieved to see that we were going to have a conversation about how we can plan an alternative event later in the summer. So, I mean, who knows how long this could go on, but so I guess that's my language to you, board members, and even to students. Yes, we have to cancel the current graduations as they're scheduled, but we're in conversation tomorrow about alternative dates to make sure seniors still have that experience. Of course, Danny Marenko is still working on summer school. Danny has to work in two directions. He has to plan for traditional summer school, because what if we can come back? And then what if we're still at home? So he actually has more work for summer school because of this. Principals and their teams are already, well, they've been working on master schedules for next year already, and all the other work that comes with opening the school year. We're going to have to take a look at our at-home learning plan, not only because of how we're going to handle it through the end of the year, but we need to be thinking about what if this county order is still in place in August. And so I try not to listen to the news too much because it can be so depressing. But there have been some experts who said that when you take a look at the other countries like China, when they thought they reached their peak and they started to lighten up on some of their orders, they saw the numbers start to peak again. So we have to be thinking in terms of how do we open school next year two ways. What if we have to open to distance learning, and what if we're opening as traditional school? And then there's plans for reopening schools. That involves everybody from staffing to custodial to everybody. And, you know, I sure would like to see a big staff party when this emergency is over, because everybody has just been incredible. You saw from Tony that recruiting and hiring is going to continue on. And as we get more direction from state and county, of course, we'll have to add to this list. So I just want to say before I open it up to everybody that, I mean, I think we can all be really proud of our district. Without any additional resources, well, I guess the $17 per student that just came in. But our staff really rose to the occasion. You saw how quickly on a Friday, Karina and her team had a plan, and on Monday we were implementing the at-home learning plan. And you see how everybody in all the divisions continue to work. And I'm just really, really proud to say that I'm working in this district. And I'll just open it up for any final comments or feedback.
I just have to say, once again, thank you to everybody for all the work you've done just across the board, you know, whether it's ed services, business, HR, you guys have really, wellness, everybody's really just gone above and beyond in such a short period of time. You know, I can't believe it's only been a couple of weeks and it feels like 2 years. But thank you. I just can't say thank you enough to all of you.
Anybody else?
Yeah. Just given everything we're hearing on the news, I try to limit myself, but it doesn't work. I watch the news nonstop, and it seems like every day there's something else that we're learning to adapt to. So I just want to praise the work in our district, in our community, and looking at all the efforts, whether we can physically volunteer in places or not. There's a lot of work being done in a lot of ways that people are contributing, and shout out to the students too, keeping up with these things because, both this year and moving in through summer and into college and imagining all these things must be a lot. So it's a unique time. It's a unique time, and things are changing very fast. So thank you for changing with them, and let's keep up the good work and stay healthy.
Do we want to move on to the next agenda item? Or do
Sure.
people still want to comment? Sorry, Kalima, just
No.
take over. Take the mic away from me.
No, you're fine. Any other comments? Okay, so thank you for everyone for the presentation today. To me, it was very helpful and informative. So I'm glad I have that as a foundational is moving forward. I don't really have much to offer right now. I mean, my only concern is what happens after this is over. So I'm really thinking about keeping really good data so that we can really track the true magnitude of what is exactly happening, because I don't even understand what's happening right now, right? So I have nothing to offer in how do we best navigate a problem, which I kind of don't really understand exactly what we're dealing with, the magnitude of it, because it changes every other day. So for me, it's just we're getting a baseline before this happens, before this started, and then revisiting that afterwards so that we can see what do we need to do to mitigate any damage that was caused, to heal, and to move people forward so that we can get back to whatever normal was. And then what changes that are happening right now that we can currently embrace and continue, that might be beneficial. Like we may be doing things now that might actually work better for us moving forward. So what can we embrace from this in this new streamlined world that could possibly be beneficial for us moving forward? And again, I'm extremely grateful for everyone for all the work that they've been doing. It changes every 2 minutes. And so to keep up with all of this while at the same time dealing with everything that you have going on at home. I know lots of administrators and teachers and staff all have other issues on top of what's happening right now. So I'm extremely grateful for the work that we've been doing, and concur with Terry that we're all in this together. So it's been a great time to be a member of JUHSD. So thank you all. And moving on to our action items. For human resources, we have the administrative appointment, principal of adult programs. I'm turning it, I believe, over to Tony Presta.
Hi, yeah, thank you. So we would like to, the executive team would like to appoint Mark Bashirs as the principal of adult programs beginning July 1st, 2020. Mark has 18 years in our school district. He's currently the Jefferson High School principal. He's been an English teacher, a dean of students, vice principal, and he's worked at different schools in the district, Terranova, Jefferson. We were really impressed with what with what he had to say, and with his excitement for running the adult school and adult transition programs. And we believe he will do an excellent job in this new role.
Great, opening up for any comments or motion.
Move to appoint Mark Bashirs as principal of adult programs.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you. Moving on to the next item, administrative appointment, Vice Principal of Terra Nova High School. Turning it back over to.
Okay, thank you. So we interviewed also for Vice Principal of Terra Nova School, several applicants. And the executive team would like to appoint Steve Pofall. He's currently a vice principal at Westmore High School. So this would be a move over to Terra Nova starting July 1, 2020. Steve has 13 years in Jefferson High School District, Union High School District. He's a current VP of Westmore, as I said. He's taught social science, PE, and health. He's been Dean of Students, athletic director, track and field, and cross-country coach. Steve is really excited, has had some really great experience at Westmore and is excited to expand with Terra Nova. We think he'll be an excellent vice principal for Terra Nova, and we recommend that the board appoint him.
All right, so unless there are any comments, can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you.
All right. All right, thank you, and congratulations to them both. Please pass that on from the board. Congratulate them both and welcome them to their new positions from us. Normally they would be here and we could give them a big round of applause, but just give it to them virtually.
I will, definitely.
Thank you. Okay, our next item on the agenda is consideration of future agenda items. I know we do have an emergency meeting on Friday, so I don't know if I think everything that we need to discuss is probably on that agenda, but is anything else? No? All right, so can I get a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, awesome.